Free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine!
I just wanted to go over Big Fan's quote from 4 days ago when she initially called for a global strike week from the 21st to the 28th. She stated, "We civilians across the world do not have the tools of war. We do not thirst for killing and death. We only have our throats in the demonstrations of the economic movement, especially those that support the genocide committed by Israel in Gaza. Strike from the economic movement, work in your normal life, because nothing is normal in this life. Strike as much as you can and protest for a whole week or until the madness ends. You can disrupt the economies that support genocide and make your voices and our voices heard. Call for strikes during the next week for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. We are human beings like you." She said, "We are human beings like you. We had universities and lives. They were destroyed in front of you and are still being destroyed. You can make a difference and stop this genocide. Do not despair and continue until the ceasefire."
Real quick, I don't know if you guys are on Twitter, other forms of social media, but Bisan is really asking us to put our all into boycotting. And this is imperative, especially for companies like McDonald's. They're supplying free meals to these IDF terrorists. Shame! While our own people are freezing and dying in the street. Look at the homeless population. I'm a veteran. Look at how many homeless veterans are on the street right
Shame!
now.
Shame!
That's right. They can afford to house people and people are freezing and they can afford to give these soldiers free meals.
Shame!
Absolutely not. Not another nickel. Not another thing.
No.
For these companies. And this also goes for Pizza Hut. They gave pizza to the soldiers. Did you guys eat? Boxes filled from the floor to the ceiling. Disgusting. Starbucks, we're all familiar with them.
Shame!
I don't know about you guys, but I am doing much better without it. My body's thanking me. Your body will thank you anyway. It's full of poison. So, urge people, don't buy that garbage. Buy that genocidal enabling garbage that makes you sick. To be honest, right? And the strike lasts from today till the 28th. Now I know we need groceries. We need other things. So if anything, I urge you all to go to small, markets, Nepali markets, Hispanic markets. Shop small, shop local, Definitely. But
Woo!
our bodies will thank the representatives. That is very, very, very important as well.
Hey everybody. Before we start, we want to acknowledge that we are on Susquehannock land and recognize the struggles of indigenous peoples on Turtle Island and throughout the world, as well as celebrate their resilience in the face of the oppression of colonization. My name is Brendan. I'm a Harrisburg native. Last week, South Africa courageously went before the International Court of Justice to hold Israel responsible for its ongoing genocide in Gaza.
Yeah.
To whomever out there is listening to this, I don't care about your opinion of Israel or Zionism or whatever. I simply want to demonstrate to you that South Africa is factually correct.
Yes!
This does not mean that the definition of genocide accepted by the UN is necessarily a good one. In fact, it's quite narrow, narrower than the definition given by the man who coined the term genocide. Nevertheless, Israel signed the 1948 Genocide Convention. They are a party, which means they agreed to this and they broke it anyway. Shame!
Shame!
So first off, the definition of genocide is the following. Any of the acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mentally harm, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life intended to destroy them physically or in whole or in part. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Those of you who are familiar with the residential school system in the United States and Canada are probably familiar with this. That is an act of genocide, including at the Carlisle Indian Industrial School, which is about 45 minutes from here.
Shame!
God, my arm is tired. Yeah. First off, Israel does not need to intend to kill all Palestinians to be guilty of genocide. It doesn't even directly need to kill one person. They only need to attempt to destroy in whole or in part. Second off, it does not need to be successful at genocide. They only need to commit one of the acts that I mentioned before with intent. All of the following crimes were submitted to the International Court of Justice by South Africa's lawyers as evidence. Israel has killed over 30,000 Palestinians by this point. When they submitted it, it was more like 23,000. About half of those are children. This includes summary execution and shooting of Palestinians waving white flags. 11 members of the Ahmad family of Gaza were summarily executed. They separated the men and boys from the women and girls and killed them.
Shame!
Israel has traumatized children.
Shame!
79% of Gazan children report bedwetting. 55% report self-harm. 59% report suicidal ideation.
Shame! Shame!
Israel has humiliated Palestinians by forcing men and boys to strip to their underwear in the bitter Gazan winter.
Shame!
The siege of Gaza is so totalizing that there is little access to food, clean water, medicine, or any other kinds of supplies. More people will die of starvation and infectious diseases in the coming weeks than from bombs and bullets. According to the international president of Doctors Without Borders, doctors are forced to take drastic action in order to save the lives of their patients. They're forced to perform amputations when it would otherwise be unnecessary, most of the time without anesthesia.
Shame!
Children!
Shame!
The facilities of hospitals and other healthcare facilities have been bombed. They have been shot at. They have had water and electricity cut off, making normal operation all but impossible. Infrastructure such as sewage pipes, bakeries, and electric grids have been destroyed, making normal life in Gaza impossible.
Shame!
Genocide also does not entail, often, merely physical destruction, but also cultural and intellectual destruction. Institutions of Palestinian cultural and intellectual life have been destroyed, damaged, or targeted, including the main public library, which is in ruins, and all 4 of its main public universities. This was not mentioned in South Africa's case because it only happened last night. Al Isra University, which has been captured and seized and used as a base for the last 70 days by the IOF, was just blown up last night.
Oh my God. Shame! Shame!
That entailed the destruction of over 3,000 rare archaeological artifacts. They are erasing the fact that there was a people here before Israel.
Shame.
318 churches and mosques have been targeted, damaged, or totally destroyed.
Shame.
One of those was the Great Omari Mosque, which was originally built as a church in the 5th century.
Shame.
It's older than Israel itself.
Shame.
The Church of St. Porphyrius was built in 450 AD. And it was totally destroyed.
Shame.
Finally, concerning births. Doctors are forced to perform hysterectomies on young women which would otherwise be unnecessary, effectively sterilizing them.
Shame.
Stress-caused premature births have increased by 25 to 30%.
Shame.
Cases of placental abruption, which is deadly without immediate intervention in 50% of cases, has doubled.
Shame.
Premature births and stillbirths have increased.
Shame.
Newborns are left without proper care, as are NICU babies who were born prematurely. They left their bodies to rot.
Shame.
There's much in South Africa's document that I have not mentioned. This is a fraction. I encourage you all to read it all for yourself, but I have to ask, is this how a nation concerned with civilian casualties conducts itself in war?
No.
Is it?
No.
Is this how a nation that is committing genocide conducts itself?
Yes.
These are actions. However, under the 1948 Convention for the Punishment and Prevention of the Crime of Genocide, there is no genocide without intent. Fortunately or unfortunately, Israeli society has, the highest echelons of Israeli power have a tendency to tell on themselves. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, quote, "You must remember what Amalek has done to you," in reference to Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 17 to 19, where God orders the Israelites to wipe out every single member of the Amalekite tribe, saying, "You must wipe out the seed of Amalek from under the sun."
Shame.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true. Anybody.
It's in, whatever, it's there. President Isaac Herzog. It is an entire nation out there that is responsible. It is not true, this rhetoric about civilians that are not aware, not involved. It is absolutely not true, and we will fight until we break their backbone, end quote. Minister of Heritage Amichai Eliyahu. There is no such thing as uninvolved civilians in Gaza, end quote.
Shame.
Minister of Agriculture Avi Dichter. We are now actually rolling out the Gaza Nakba, end quote.
Shame.
Major General Ghassan Leon of Kogat, which I might add is in charge of humanitarian crossing of Rafah and all humanitarian aid to Gaza. Hamas and ISIS and the citizens of Gaza are celebrating instead of being horrified. Human animals are dealt with accordingly, end quote.
Shame.
Deir Yassin massacre veteran and Nakba veteran Ezra Yachin, who is now 95 years old, in an officially sanctioned speech to IDF soldiers stated, "Finish them off and don't leave anyone behind. Erase the memory of them. Erase them, their families, mothers, and children. These animals can no longer live. Every Jew with a weapon shall go out and kill them. If you have an Arab neighbor, kill them. Do not hesitate. Go to his home and shoot him," end quote.
Shame. Oh my God.
Do away with him.
Not for the idea, buddy. Commander Yerben David of the 2,908th Battalion, quote, "The IDF has entered Beit Hanun and did there as Simon and Levi did in Nablus," referencing the biblical story of Simon and Levi, where it is stated, "On the third day when they were in pain, Simon and Levi took their swords came upon the city unmolested and slew all the males. End quote.
Shame!
At least some of the members of the IDF have undoubtedly followed examples of their leaders. Uniformed Israeli soldiers have been filmed chanting, "There are no uninvolved civilians," and wipe out the seed of Amalek after more than 17,000 civilians had been killed at that point.
Shame!
Again, half of them children.
Shame!
And now a string of quotes from various members of the Israeli parliament. Quote, "The killers of women and children should not be separated from the citizens of Gaza." Quote, "The children of Gaza have brought this upon themselves."
Oof.
Quote, "There should be one sentence for everyone there, death." We must not forget that even the quote-unquote innocent citizens, the cruel and monstrous people from Gaza, took an active part. There is no place for any humanitarian gesture. The memory of Amalek must be protested.
Shame!
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 Taken together, these actions and these quotes amount to genocide. It demonstrated its intent to the whole world long before it committed many of these crimes. In fact, South Africa will soon be suing the United States and the United Kingdom in the International Criminal Court for that complicity.
Yes!
Indonesia, Slovenia, Switzerland, and many others have additionally brought Israel to court, whether in the ICJ or the International Criminal Court, the ICC.
Woo!
In the 1960 film, Judgment at Nuremberg, a lawyer played by the great Swiss actor Maximilian Schell stated that Germany's guilt is the world's guilt. The same is true here. Every nation that did not act against Israel, unlike Yemen, I might add, is just as complicit, just as it was in North America, also known as Turtle Island, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Rwanda, Sudan, the Congo, Armenia, Nagorno-Karabakh, and yes, the Holocaust. More than 500,000 people sleep on the streets in the United States, and our leaders just sent $14.5 billion to a nation across the ocean.
Shame!
Nobody likes doing their taxes, but how are you going to feel doing your taxes this year? I don't know if I can fucking stand it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've taken up too much of your time already, so I'm going to pass it off to our next speaker, Mateo Enicopra. And free Palestine!
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 I want to speak without the megaphone. Can everyone hear me?
Woo!
So I don't know how much context you have on Palestine, but I know for a fact that you know that you've heard Israel's claim, which is that it was a land with no people for a people with no land.
Lies!
Before its creation, there was an entire country there and it was flourishing. We had currency. We had schools, airports. We had culture. We had traditions. We had songs. We had everything. We existed. And we still, oh, my out's frozen. We still exist. Yeah. The Palestinians resisted occupations before Israel's. And so this is not about resisting Jewish immigration to that land or about opposing Jewish presence on the land. No. Not like Israel claims or the U.S. parrots, but this is about continuing to exist on the land that we and our ancestors from the beginning of our existence were born to. And by so, tying our souls to the olive groves and binding our blood to the soils that nurture the beating heart of the Palestinian. The Palestinians. The Palestinians exist. And the British, who were occupying Palestine under the pretext of a mandate before Israel had signed the Balfour Declaration in November of 1917, promising a land that was not theirs to a people residing halfway across the world, disregarding the people whose ancestors planted olive trees on that land 500 years before. The UN later partitioned the land of Palestine in 1947, unjustly giving more than half of that land to incoming Jews from Europe escaping anti-Semitism and the horrors of the Holocaust after World War II. In May of 1948, our indigenous land became internationally disregarded and instead recognized as Israel. And what isn't discussed often is that to implement this transition, mass violence for decades was in occurrence before Israel's creation. Zionist terror gangs existed. The Stern Gang, Leahy, Irgun, Palmach. They were all attacking Palestinian villages and killing Palestinians who refused to sell their land to incoming Jews.
Shame!
Shame!
Throughout the 1920s, 2 decades before Israel's creation, Palestinians were being attacked by Zionist forces as well as by the British mandate alike. The first known Palestinian resistance fighters were then formed, the Fidaiyin. These men were farmers. They had nothing to do with combat, but they taught themselves to defend their families and their homes. Neighboring countries like Syria and Lebanon, they helped supply them arms, and quickly these fighters became many. These farmers wore the kafiyah, the scarf that you see us wear, a symbol today of both Arab unity and Palestinian resistance. The Palestinians had been wearing the scarf on their heads as they farmed as a way to shield them from the heat. But during the 30s, they began to wrap these scarves around their faces to protect their identities from the mandate to fight off British officers and Zionist terror gangs alike. But as determined as these fighters were, they were not able to fight off the UN's unjust partition of their land, nor were they able to fight off the Stern Gang, the Irgun, the Haganah, who forcefully displaced over 400 villages. The most violent ways, the most brutal ways, and almost overnight, 750,000 Palestinians were displaced.
Shame!
This was the start of the Nakba. And I say start because we are still living in the Nakba. It never ended. It continues today. The Fidaiyin and the riots of the 1920s to 1930s, the efforts by neighboring Arab countries to stop Israel's colonization in 1948, the Six-Day War of 1967, Layla Khalid and the hijacking of Boeing in 1969, the First Intifada in 1987, the Oslo Peace Accord talks that Israel signed and did not uphold in 1993, the Second Intifada in 2000, the Great March of Return in 2018. Every missile that comes out of Gaza since 2005, every step the Palestinian takes, every movement the Palestinian makes, every breath the Palestinian takes has all been resistance, because to resist is the only way a Palestinian can exist.
Yes!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
I am one of 7 million Palestinians in the diaspora. There are 2 million Palestinians in the Israeli territories. Given Israeli citizenship, but treated differently than Jewish Israelis in courts, cannot buy land in certain areas, cannot hold certain jobs, have a different set of laws they must live under. This is apartheid.
Shame!
There are 3 million Palestinians in the West Bank. Those that live in the West Bank are denied basic human rights. and live under Israel's full apartheid control. Jewish-only roads that they cannot drive on. There are thousands of Israeli military checkpoints blocking villages from one another, limiting Palestinians' access to their homes, their schools, their work. Palestinians build universities simply because the university that is 5 meters away from them is not able to be accessed by them. That is why there are so many universities in the West Bank. And that is why Palestinians have the highest rate of education and literacy in the world.
Yes.
This is also apartheid. Those in the West Bank live in extreme poverty, and in order to break out of poverty, they must have permits to work inside of Israel and essentially participate in their occupation in order to survive. There are Jewish-only settlements built illegally under international law, and these settlements take all the clean water in the areas and leave Palestinians with little to no access to fresh or clean water. Do you know that the sewage from the Jewish-only settlements often runs into Palestinian drinking water?
Shame.
And Palestinians nearby these Jewish-only settlements are tormented and killed by the illegal settlers. These settlers that kill Palestinians, they are claimed extremists by the Israeli government, but the Israeli government is who provides them with arms and access to torment Palestinians.
Shame.
These settlers often burn entire olive orchards, the economic living source for many Palestinian families. And more than that, olive trees are the ancestral ties to Palestinians that they have with their ancestors. Their ancestors who planted each olive tree with care and harvest them so that their great descendants, so that we can harvest their memory and hold them forever. These settlers kill Palestinians in the most brutal ways. In 2014, 5-year-old Inas Khalil was run over multiple times. That same year, 15-year-old Mohammed al-Khadir was kidnapped by Israeli settlers, beat until his ribs were broken, and then they forced him to drink gasoline before setting his tongue on fire. In 2018, 8-month-old Leila Al-Ghandor was killed by tear gas suffocation, along with 60 others. An annual 500 to 700 Palestinian children are kidnapped by Israeli soldiers, not settlers, soldiers, and imprisoned without charge. Oftentimes, their bodies are later found thrown on the streets with their organs missing.
Shame.
And Israelis have confessed to harvesting their organs without consent. Shame. And then there's the Gaza Strip, home to a decreasing 2.2 million people, over 1 million of whom are children. Those that live in Gaza are political refugees, displaced first in 1948, then again in 1967, and then three times since October. They have been living in a concentration camp for the past 17 years and under a siege and a total blockade, controlling Gaza's airspace, borders, and access to open sea, making it near impossible for Gazans to access the Mediterranean and fish, which is the economic living source for Palestinians in Gaza. All of this collective punishment for voting Hamas, a political party, into power to both govern the Palestinians and to militarily fight back the occupation for Palestinian liberation that continues to kill Palestinians. You haven't heard this, at least not in this context. You may only hear about Palestinians when Palestinians resist, when they retaliate, when they fire missiles at Israel for breaking the backs of Palestinians praying at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest mosque for all Muslims. or when they try to hold leverage over Israel to get the thousands of Palestinians out of Israeli prisons and so kidnap Israeli hostages for exchange. As Israel bombs Gaza every few years, beginning in 2008, then again in 2012, then 2014, 2021, 22, and now in 2023, Israel's siege and blockade of Gaza and the occupation of Palestine are to ensure that there is no way out for the Palestinian other than death.
Shame.
And to that, Palestinians resist and say, free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine.
Free Palestine!
The civil war in Sudan is killing 20 million people.
Shame!
20,000!
The civil war in Sudan is between two competing war lords. The Janjaweed leader, who was used by the same people who are fighting against them, the NIF, the Janjaweed and the NIF are two sides of the same coin, and now they're fighting for control of the country in the civil war. They had a coup d'etat in October 25 last year, okay, against the civilian government that was going to trying to have a general election in the country, and to sabotage the democratic movement of the people. They came with a coup d'etat on October 25 last year. Shame on them.
Shame.
And now they are fighting to control who control among each other, the NIF and the Genocide. Published by the New York Times that countries, some Middle Eastern countries and Russian militias have been smuggling powerful weapons to General Himeti, to the Janjaweed.
Shame!
Okay.
Shame.
Yes. The Janjaweed through Chad. Since, yes. And they've been supplying them with drones, aircraft, missiles, very sophisticated weapons that even the military doesn't have it. And this war, among these two warlords, what catastrophe in Sudan, killing at least 12,000 people.
Shame.
Since April, and displacing about 8 million from their homes, the United Nations estimates.
Shame.
Fighting has laid waste large parts of the country, which is Khartoum, and 25 million of Sudan, 45 million people need relief. They need your help to survive. Who's supplying weapons to Janjaweed?
Russia.
Experts say Middle Eastern countries and
Amen.
Russian militias, the Wagner militia. They're using their vast wealth and trying to gobble the gold resources of Sudan. Sudan is very resourceful country in natural resources, the gold, in uranium, and they're trying to control those resources, those Middle Eastern countries, and Russia.
Shame.
Shame.
It's been, disastrous to the country. Most of the people, most of the dead, a lot of the people who are dead are children.
Shame.
Shame.
Women are being raped
Shame.
by force, and men are being killed. Unarmed, men are being killed.
Shame.
Yes, a lot of people are homeless now, and the neighboring countries are making it not easy for people to go in their countries. So there's a lot of homelessness, there's a lot of hunger, there's a lot of displacement of people.
Shame.
So please talk to your representatives. Not many people know about what's happening in Sudan. While people are being killed and children are being killed.
Shame.
Nobody knows about that. So please talk to your representative to come to that and have that for the government of the U.S. to influence. They have a lot of influence on this Middle Eastern and Israel to stop supplying weapons to the Janjaweed and to stop the war of Sudan and the killings of children and innocent people in Sudan. Thank you very much.
Today I stand before you to shed light on a dark chapter in our shared humanity, a chapter marked by the tragedy that unfolded in Darfur, Sudan in 2003. Since 2003 until now, the genocide in Darfur has claimed lives of at least 300,000 innocent civilians. And more than 2.5 million people have been displaced from their homes and their village. As we reflect on the horrific chapter, it is crucial to draw connections to the present and recognize the ongoing challenges faced by the people in Sudan in 2024. In 2003, the world watched in horror as the Darfur region, once green with its nature and peaceful, its atmosphere turned red from the blood of the martyrs and the survivors never recovering from the nightmare that they have faced. Darfur became a battleground for violence, mass displacement, and unspeakable crimes. Ethnic cleansing that was carried out by the Janjaweed, backed by the Sudanese government, escalated into humanity crisis, leading to whispering and suffering. The international community was slow to respond, and the people of Darfur had paid a heavy price. Fast forward to the present day, and we find ourselves with the harsh reality that Sudan continues to struggle with the aftermath of the tragedy. The scars of Darfur lingers, affecting not only the survivors, but everything around them. It's important upon us to acknowledge the deep-rooted impact of the past on the present. As we speak, Sudan faces a complex set of challenges. The scars of Darfur persist, and the nation faces with issues such as barbarism and international displacement, economic instability, and need for genuine peace. Yet, in the challenges, there is hope. Hope that as a global community, we can learn from the mistakes of the past and work together to ensure a brighter future for Darfur and Sudan. It is a call for action for us all to be watchful and to stand against injustice and to promote peace and stability and human rights. In 2003, Darfur became a symbol of international failure, a failure to protect the vulnerable and a failure to prevent mass war crimes. In 2024, let us turn the narrative around. Let us be a force for positive change, advocating the justice and accountability and well-being of the people in Darfur and in Sudan as a whole. As we remember the victims of Darfur, let us not forget our collective responsibilities to shape a world where such hateful crimes are not only commended but actively prevented. The journey towards a brighter future for Sudan begins with acknowledging its past and working tirelessly towards a more just and compassionate world. Thank you. Free Sudan, free Palestine, and free Congo.
My name is Brian, and I am deeply honored and humbled to stand with you today as a proud Jewish anti-Zionist. Next Saturday is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, where we commemorate the 6 million Jews who were exterminated by the Nazis between 1941 and 1945. Over 60% of Europe's Jews, almost 40% of the Jews in the world at that time, were slaughtered by fascists in unimaginably barbaric ways. I am also going to take a moment to acknowledge the Nazi genocide of the Romani people at the same time. In what they call the Parajmos, or the Samudarapen, 250,000 to 500,000 of Europe's 1 million Romani were butchered, and far too often our Romani brothers and sisters are pushed to the side when we talk about Nazi crimes. May their memories be a blessing. We remember you and we stand in solidarity with your descendants today. This Holocaust Remembrance Day is probably the most important one yet. This year it is not simply a day to remember the past, but rather it is a day to act in the present. It is not a day to mourn, it is a day to rise up and make sure that never again means never again for anybody.
Yes.
It is a day to be defiant and to fight with all our hearts to make sure the fate of the Jews under the Nazi regime does not become the fate of the Palestinians under the Zionist regime.
Yes.
It is a day to use the lessons of one genocide to stop another in its tracks. As such, it is crucial that the Holocaust be put into its proper historical context. It has been said that fascism is capitalism in crisis, that it is colonialism turned inward. Indeed, at the root of the Holocaust was centuries of anti-Semitism, a racist European invention that dehumanized and tormented generation after generation of my Jewish ancestors. This persecution crescendoed with the Nazis' rise to power. But while anti-Semitism motivated the Holocaust, it alone could not provide the tools to commit the Holocaust. It was colonialism and imperialism that allowed Germany to build the genocide machine that it unleashed on my people. And it is that very same colonialism and imperialism that is unleashed on Palestine today. Never again is now. In November, I watched a video of Israeli police knocking on the door of a young Palestinian woman and arresting her and her husband because they didn't like something she posted online.
Shame.
I will never forget the terror in her eyes when she realized they were accusing her of terrorist activity over an innocuous social media post. Nor will I forget the frantic way she begged them, saying, "No, please, I love Israel. God bless Israel," in the desperate hope that they'd leave her alone if she claimed to love the fascist state that hates her for merely existing.
Shame.
For the first time in my life, I truly understood what it must have been like for Jews in Nazi Germany when the Gestapo came knocking at their door. Growing up, I had the heartbreaking privilege of meeting many Holocaust survivors and hearing their stories. I learned about the extermination camps, the concentration camps, the ghettos, the fear, the terror, the hunger, the hiding places, the betrayal from non-Jewish neighbors, the harassment from the police. I learned about the yellow stars my people were forced to wear, the tattoos forced onto their arms that reduced them to nothing more than numbers, the hair that the Nazis sheared off of their heads like they were livestock, and the gold teeth torn from their mouths to make sure every last bit of value was extracted before they were turned to ash.
Shame.
I have been to Auschwitz. I have stepped foot into the gas chambers, and with my own eyes, I have seen where my ancestors scratched into the concrete walls with their bare hands as they tried to escape. I do not know how anybody could learn the things I've learned and see the things I've seen and not be horrified by the fact that the memory of the Jews who suffered such an inconceivably cruel fate is now being invoked to commit yet another genocide, this time in Palestine.
Shame!
I learned other lessons from the Holocaust too. I learned about Jewish resistance to the Nazis. I learned about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, the Bialystok Ghetto Uprising, the Częstochowa Ghetto Uprising, and the Jewish partisan groups that heroically resisted the fascist death machine all over Nazi-occupied Europe. My people did not just roll over and die, and I am inspired to see that brave and righteous tradition of resistance continue in Palestine today.
Woo!
The first tragedy of the Holocaust is that it was committed at all. The second tragedy of the Holocaust is how its legacy is being exploited to inflict even more evil on the oppressed of this world. Germany was never held accountable. Not really. It was not punished for the Holocaust. Instead, the Western capitalist powers, led by the so-called United States of America, that function on the exact same colonialism, imperialism, and white supremacy, made sure that Germany could be allowed to continue its violent history as long as it does so on their terms, as long as it knows its place and doesn't step out of line again. Instead of giving the Jewish people justice for the Holocaust, these anti-Semitic capitalist states that hate us have seized the opportunity to turn the tables, to put us on a philo-Semitic pedestal, and to use the horrors that they inflicted on us as an excuse to keep doing it to Palestine.
Shame!
And Germany is all too happy to play its part. It has decided to intervene at the International Court of Justice, where South Africa has charged Israel with genocide.
Shame!
South Africa, the country run by the people who defeated the evil of apartheid, is being condemned by Germany, the country run by the children of unpunished Nazis, which treats the fact that it committed the Holocaust as though that grants it the most moral authority on matters of genocide instead of the least.
Shame!
They pretend these Zionist atrocities are to keep the Jewish people safe. I stand before you today to condemn that claim for what it is, a fascist lie.
Yes!
For Judaism to live, Zionism must die.
Yes!
And to my Jewish brothers and sisters, I ask you what the point of learning our history was if we are going to just sit back and let it happen to someone else. We will not allow Palestine to be punished for the European and American crimes of history. This International Holocaust Remembrance Day, there is only one way, above all others, to honor the Jews who died in the Shoah, to stand unequivocally and without reservation for total Palestinian liberation from the river to the sea. Never again is now. Thank you.
So I'm speaking on behalf of our friend Jazz, who could not make it because he is sick. And I'm going to share a bit about the Bosnian genocide. Although many different ethnic and religious groups had resided together for 40 years under Yugoslavia's communist government, this changed when the country began to collapse during the fall of communism in the early 90s. The provinces of Slovenia and Croatia declared their independence, and war quickly followed between Serbia and these breakaway republics. In April 1992, Serbia set out to ethnically cleanse Bosnian territory by systematically removing all Bosnian Muslim, known as Bosniaks. Serbia, together with ethnic Bosnian Serbs, attacked Bosniaks with former Yugoslavian military equipment and surrounded Sarajevo, the capital city. Many Bosniaks were driven into concentration camps where women and girls were systematically gang raped and other civilians were tortured, starved, and murdered. July 1995, Serbs committed the largest massacre in Europe since World War II in one such area, Srebrenica, thank you. An estimated 23,000 women, children, and elderly people were put onto buses and driven to Muslim-controlled territory, while 8,000 battle-aged men were detained and slaughtered.
Shame.
In 1994, NATO initiated airstrikes against Bosnian Serbs to stop the attacks. In December 1995, U.S.-led negotiations in Dayton, Ohio, the Dayton Peace Accords, ended the conflict in Bosnia, and a force was created to maintain the ceasefire. Since the end of the conflict, the International Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia at The Hague has been charged more than 160 persons. Convictions included Serb, Croat, Bosniak, and Bosniaks, though Serbians and Bosnian Serbs have faced the majority of charges. In 2001, former president, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher this name, Milosevic was captured. Milosevic was captured, but he died in his cell in 2006. Radovan Hirzic, the supreme commander of the Bosnian Serb Armed Forces, was captured in 2008 and is being tried in The Hague on genocide charges. Ratko Mladic, chief of staff of the Bosnian Serb army, was captured in May 2011 and is charged with 11 counts, including genocide and crimes against humanity. We must remember all atrocity committed against marginalized groups. All liberation is connected. Free Palestine.
My name is Angelica, and I'm going to be talking today about the American Indian and Alaska Native genocide that began 500 years ago and is still continuing today. I am not Native. I have been working in Indigenous health for nearly 7 years, primarily at the national level, so I've had the honor of working with tribes and tribal organizations across the country. However, I am here today speaking for myself. Native people inhabited this land, now known as the United States, since time immemorial. They lived in harmony with the earth and had strong communities and rich cultures when Europeans arrived. Tribes also had full sovereignty, meaning they governed themselves as independent nations, and their governments were generally more open and democratic than European monarchies. Our own constitution was modeled after the Iroquois Confederacy, and yet our Declaration of Independence refers to them as merciless Indian savages.
Shame.
Europeans believed in the doctrine of discovery, which meant whoever discovered new land could take it.
Shame.
Free Palestine.
The land wasn't empty, but it wasn't being owned as property in a way that Europeans thought counted. It was less than 1 year ago, in 2023, that the Catholic Church finally rejected the doctrine of discovery that they had published and that justified atrocities worldwide. The United States negotiated hundreds of treaties where tribes gave up land and the government took on obligations like providing them health care. This was promised to happen until the grass stopped growing and the sun stopped shining, meaning forever. This is a broken promise. Tribes are considered domestic dependent nations, meaning the U.S. has a guardian role over them. This still exists. There are now 574 federally recognized tribes, and they have a special legal status. From the beginning, there was violence, attacks, and massacres. George Washington ordered the total destruction and devastation of their settlements.
Shame.
Since the beginning of colonization, Native women were targeted as victims of rape and murder because they are the life keepers central to their communities. Targeting them was a way to destroy nations and the next generation. Disease killed 90% of indigenous global cooling for the opposite reason that we're experiencing global warming today. In 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Federal Indian Removal Act and forced many eastern tribes to relocate. Think of the Trail of Tears. Many people died, but those who survived lost access to things like traditional foods and medicines. Indigenous spirituality isn't like Christianity or Islam, where what you believe in your heart is what's most important. Native religions are often about practice and land-based. The belief you have may not matter, and the religion may not even apply to people who are not on that territory.
But the land grab just kept going because the Europeans wanted it and because of manifest destiny. The idea that the United States was mandated by God to subdue the continent. 1946, the Strategic Minerals Stockpiling Act was passed to obtain cobalt, meaning Congo was targeted. Since 1996, over 12 million people have been killed. Congo has the world's largest reserve of coltan. Both coltan and cobalt are critical minerals needed for electronic devices, aerospace, and most importantly, the innovation of technology. Multinational mining companies were created to source coltan. These companies are enslaving men, women, and children. In Congo, over 12 million have been killed. Half of them children. Millions have been displaced. According to the UN, over 500,000 have fled their homes just as December 17th, 2023.
Shame.
48 women are raped hourly.
Shame.
According to an article published by New York Times in just October of this past year, Doctors Without Borders treated on average 70 sexual assault victims every day.
Shame.
And in the broader North Kivu region, it has treated at least 18,000 cases since the publication was posted in December 17th.
Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be